To write to a file in Python, we open the file, write our data, and then close the file. Now Python makes this relatively easy. We open the file using Python's general function called open. It takes at least one argument, a file name. By default, it looks in the same folder where the code is currently running, but you could also put a full path here. Optionally, we can put a second argument as well. This argument is either W for write, R for read, or A for append. Write will overwrite the current content of the file, append will add to the end of the file, and read will just read from the file without actually changing its contents. So here we're using W because we want to write to the file, overwriting anything that was there before. We set the results of this open function equal to some variable. So our file that we're writing is really a variable. And that sounds kind of weird. We can think of output file as the content of the file with methods for writing data to the file. The file itself isn't really data, the file just has the ways to write data. For writing data, that's a method called write. Write will write the contents inside the parentheses that follow it into our file. Notice over on our right, we're showing the contents of outputfile.txt rather than just the console output. In this code, we're never printing anything, so there would be no console output, but there would be output to our file. We have to convert the data that we're writing to a string first, because the write method can only write strings to files. It only deals with plain text. So we first have to explicitly convert anything we want to write to a file to a string. So this code creates three variables, gives them their values. On line 6, it opens the file and assigns the open file to the variable output file. And on lines 9, 11, and 13, it writes the values of these three variables to our file. Then on line 15, it closes the file so we can open it elsewhere. If we open it, we'll see that the contents are our three numbers, 12, 23, and 34, but they're all printed on the same line. By default, write does not start a new line at the end of writing a particular line. That's problematic here because how do we know that this text is 12, 23, and 34 instead of, for example, 123, 3, and 34? So what we would probably want to do is manually add a line break to the end of each line that we write to our file. We do that using a string containing only that escape sequence /n. We first convert the data that we're writing to a string, then append it with a line break. And so when it writes to the file, we see that each variable or each value appears on a different line, because when it was written, it had those line breaks after each line. So this covers a simple way of writing files. We first open the file and set it equal to some variable. We can call variable, or in this case output file.write, to write the data inside the parentheses to the file. And we can always add a line break manually to ensure that everything appears on a different line. After we run this code, we can then open that file and find exactly what was written. What's valuable here is that file is permanent. So if we go away, if we close down our code for a week and come back and run it again, we still have the same data. We just need to load it back into our program, which we'll do next.